One. Hello, and welcome to another episode of 50 Hitting 50. And I'm here today with the incredible Marcia Weekes-Spears. Did I get that right? Did I get that in the right order?
Perfect. And I've called you Deirdre this time rather than Deirdre. So we're all good between us. We're good.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming. It is a pleasure to have you here. And yeah, we've had some great sort of back conversation already on this. And you tell me you've done some prep, and I honestly think you're the first person who has done for one of these conversations. What did the prep involve?
I probably won't use any of it. Do you know, my prep was more about thinking, and when we spoke last time, we spoke about the milestones across the years and how I've approached them personally. So I just noted those down and just took some time to think about what was really going on for me at that point and why did I feel how I did at those stages. So yeah, I've gone from 13, which I think is the first milestone, biggest milestone I can think of, turning into a teenager. That's exciting, right? Only 5 years away from being an adult, nearly there. The next one being 16. I think the only really thing with 16 is that we've got a national insurance card. Yeah, closer to working, closer to maybe.
Closer to it all going wrong.
Okay, I was so proud. I've still got my card. It's beaten to within the inch of its life, but I still have my card. I guess in between 16 and 18, you've then got around 17 as you start to learn to drive, and then you pass your test and you have that freedom. Another step. But then 18, I'm an adult. That's it. I could do what I want now, when I want. I'm going to have a job. I'm going to have my house. I can go wherever I want. I can spend as much money as I want. You then go to uni. 21's another big age that you turn and you think, right, I'm going to go into the world of work. I've got my degree now. I'm going to have that big job. I'm going to have my own office. I'm going to have a team working for me immediately because I've got a degree. I think as you turn to 30, and certainly for me, I hated 30. Absolutely hated 30. I can remember lying on the sofa under a cover all day, occasionally coming out, looking up at the ceiling, and my fiance at the time, husband now, saying, what's wrong? What are we going to do? What do you want to do? I don't want to do anything. Don't talk to me. This is a disaster. I think at that point, I looked back and thought, I'm losing my youth. Being an adult wasn't what I thought it was going to be. It's not rainbows and unicorns. It's all downhill from here. And that was my mindset. And if I look back now, if I could talk to my younger self, I'd give myself a good telling off. I really would. There was much to celebrate at the point. But you go through your 30s. 40 was okay for me. I'd lost my father a couple of years before. My mum was at the early stages of dementia. I thought it was grief. We didn't know what was happening. So even though I celebrated my 40th, it wasn't a time of joy. It wasn't a time of inner peace for me. Quite a lot going on. However, as I'm starting to approach my 50s, and I think I've started to feel like this from probably around 47 and a half, I cannot wait, Deirdre. It is going to be amazing. I'm 50 in December, and I think I take into that time wisdom, confidence, experience. There's almost a piece as well about generational bridge. You're at that middle place where you start to see you have your wisdom that you're taking with you, but you still have enough youth as well that you can enjoy it. You have some financial security, and I think as you start to approach that time and beyond, your authenticity and being your true self really starts to come to the fore. So for me, I love it. I can't wait. I just can't wait. And I know lots of people who think, 50 is really old and I can't believe I'm going to be 50. And I was in that pool of people before I reached 47 and a half. I won't lie, I was there. Oh my God, it's so old. But I'm grateful to be here. There are people that I went to school with, Deirdre, who haven't made it. They've passed along the way. And I think when I think about that, how dare I sit there and say, oh my God, it's awful. You know, their parents will be around. They will see us all coming to the age. You know, their parents will be thinking, I wish my mum was there. as well. So I feel that kind of with me as well, that some people that I grew up with haven't quite made it. But it's just such a time to be alive. It's wonderful. It's a time to be alive. And I keep saying to my friends, I'm going to be outrageous. They will say to me, you're already outrageous. But
more outrageous.
Really outrageous now that I reach this age. So yeah, that's it for me. And I've been reflecting as well over the past few days where this has come from. And I think this comes from my mum. So I would phone my mum on her birthday. She lives 4,000 miles away. I would phone her on her birthday and say, for example, happy 65th birthday, mum. There'll be silence. Marcia, that may be just the age that correlates with my birth certificate. I am actually 50 today. Fine. You be 50, mum. I actually got to the point and say, where are we today? What age are we now? So I think it comes from that kind of attitude. My mum was never her age. In her mind, she was always younger. She enjoyed life. I think I'm going to do the same.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you were talking through all the milestones, you know, I thought it really was so interesting. I hadn't even myself thought about thinking back to turning 13, you know, getting to that teenage status. I mean, that was a thing, wasn't it? It was like
big thing.
Yeah, big thing. But then, you know, there have been some people that I've spoken to through this, and for them 30 was like you, that was a really big change. And I suppose the thing that comes up for me is like, you know, it seems as though we do have that, we're encouraged into that adult life, into that work life, into that kind of race of accumulation or whatever it is that happens to us. And then we do start to see through that at a certain point in time. And I wonder if that does correlate with that 30.
I think that is the point. I think that is the point where you look back and you think, hold on, when I was going to be an adult, everything was going to be perfect. I could do whatever I want whenever I wanted to. What's all these taxes I'm paying? And why is there such a political system that's so different? I think you start to see these things and the reality of it starts to sink in. And you almost feel, certainly for me, I felt I've been sold a lie. Why didn't you tell me this, mum and dad? It was going to be like this. And am I the only person not seeing what's going on? And why am I suddenly seeing life in a different way? And those, as I said before, the unicorns and rainbows aren't there. They've never been there. They were there when I was little. They were lovely, but they're not there as an adult. So I think that it's almost cements in your mind, isn't the rah that you thought it was going to.
And you know, I was listening to someone yesterday. I can't actually remember the guy's name, but he was talking about the idea that, you know, things like civics in school, for instance, where you would learn about taxes and mortgages and all those things, that was swapped out for like IT and computing and so on, which are also necessary skills in other ways. Yeah. But he was talking about this idea that kids were coming to that 18, 21, 25, whatever, and they didn't have that information. They didn't know that was going to be the way. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, I was probably like that too, to be honest. But somehow we were in a different economic age and we were able to muddle through those things.
Agreed.
But that's not really the way now, is it?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, I don't regret my years. I mean, shortly after 30, we got our mortgage. And I mean, for kids nowadays, they're not going to be fortunate enough to be at 30 and have a mortgage, I suspect, in a lot of cases, unless they have some help. So we were very, very lucky. So when I do reflect, it was a good time. But in the moment, it wasn't. It wasn't the dream I thought it was going to be. You know, if I think back to 30, so I would have been in 2004, I was working in food retail. I won't name the organisation. Not the most salubrious of environments. You learned to not drink your coffee with milk because the milk was probably gone off in the canteen. It wasn't a great time. It wasn't what I envisioned. It wasn't the office where I've got the corner office and I've got a team and, you know, I'm earning the big, but it wasn't that. I was working my way up. So I don't know whether it's a narrative that I created in my mind or something that I got from my parents, but yeah, life didn't correlate with what I thought it was going to be.
Well, that's an interesting point, actually, because maybe we are handed down these myths about what is going to be based on what our parents have experienced. And if your parents, were if their generation had got a degree and then got a corner office to go with it, that didn't really work out for the generations that came after, because
Mm.
were getting degrees, and organizations were changing. And of course, now if we're the generation that we're like, oh well, I got a mortgage at 30 and we're handing down that as the dream,
Yes. Yes.
then
Yes.
there's a gap, isn't there, between the reality and
I
the
agree.
received wisdom about what life is and what the journey is.
I agree. But then is it with us then to say to younger generations, this is the reality of life? Or do we give them hope and give them a dream to try and strive towards? I don't know. It's a really hard, I don't know.
It's a
What
complex picture,
yeah.
because it's not like we can even really know that reality. We're not living their their gig economy. We're not living that.
No,
But that all sounds like everything is terrible. It isn't. That's the other side of it. We have what you and I were talking about the last time, this idea that we now have things that we can do that we were never able to do at 20, 25, 30. You and I, the likelihood of us having even met back then is just
so true. So true. So true. Social media, smartphones, that has opened up a whole realm for us. And I think along with the financial security that we have now, where we can start to do things that we really enjoy and not have to worry too much about financial constraints on that, all of that is to be celebrated. And I think going into your 50th, take those moments, take those pieces, even if you don't use all of them all the time, but take those and think, this is great. How life is going to be going forward. For me, it's such an exciting time. One of my friends recently, probably in the past couple of years, she referred to us as middle age, and I was so insulted. How very dare you? I'm not middle aged, Marcia. We are middle aged, right? Look at where we are. But I don't want that mindset. I want a mindset of youth and being able to do what I want to do. Okay, the body sometimes doesn't quite come along with me. It will at some point, but having that mentality that you can do whatever you want to do and having that confidence and your authenticity, it's the sky's your limit. Celebrate it. It's a momentous time. It really is. Great time to be alive.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think as well, that one of the things that historically maybe just hasn't, people's health hasn't been as well maintained as we're able to do now, the medical advances and so on. Again, these are all great things to have in the world around us. But, now that we can do that, we can actually really tap into the benefit of experience. And this again is, you've got all the youth and the energy at one end of the scale, which is fantastic and has its own purpose and its own results and all the rest. But now that we're going through this sort of level, we're getting to the next level, as it were, we bring with us stuff that we can bring to bear in a way that maybe wasn't possible in times where, bodies got worn out and they couldn't get repaired as much. So, yeah, again, two sides to every club gold grain, as they used to say in the biscuit ads here. No light without shadow. There's always something positive as well, isn't there?
I agree. And we're at the point in our careers as well. We're still striving. We still want to do more, but we're not at the beginning of our careers where we're really running, and that's all we're concentrating on. So it gives you a bit more space to start to think about some of the other aspects you could incorporate into your life. So for me, I've recently taken up cold water swimming. Now, a lot of my friends stopped. Marcia, you hate the cold more than anybody. And I do. I agree. Winter is not for me, even though I'm a winter baby. But cold water swimming gives you a clarity, time to think. And it's just you, the water, and keeping your temperature. And for me, I would never have looked at doing anything like that 10 years ago. But I now have that space to be able to think, I want to experience more things in life. Let me go and do something that isn't traditionally what I would do.
Yeah. mean, it's very good for you. I mean, there's lots of evidence that cold water swimming is great for your nervous system and so on as well. Do
Very,
you, what have you noticed since you've started doing it?
I have a sense of feeling really alive, really, really alive. Your body's tingling for a few hours, whether you're in the water or you've come out and you've dried off. Even for a few hours afterwards, your body is tingling, and it's almost when you step into the water and you're trying to get your breath. It's about the control you can have, and recognizing that control you can have over your body. So you know you slow down, and the coldness stops penetrating as much as it did before. But just your own mental mindset as well. It shows the strength that you have. So that, along with the body tingling, I just look forward to it. Every Wednesday evening I do it. Saturday morning, it's incredible.
You know, there was a piece a snippet from an Andrew Huberman podcast that I listened to recently, and he was talking about this idea of doing hard things and the impact that has on our brain over time, you know. And it's if you do something and it's hard to start with, but then it gets easier, that doesn't have the same kind of impact. But if you do these new hard things, or if the things remain hard, then it really does something quite special. Let's see if I can find the link and throw it in the comments.
That'd be great. That'd be great. But I agree, and I have on my horizon. I'm trying not to let it come in too much, but I also have on my horizon. Both my parents had dementia, so high likelihood possibly that I'm going to. So I need to start thinking about how I keep my brain churning, how I keep my brain moving, and doing new things will do that as well. So for me, at least once a year, I want to have a moment of intentions. What's my intention for the year coming? What's the new challenges I want to try and achieve? Have I achieved what I wanted to achieve from last year? I think that's really important for me. I'm not saying that's going to stop the dementia. It might be hereditary, but
But it could be a lot of other things too, you know. I mean, again, this goes back to this idea of environmental conditions, or whatever else. There are so many factors, I think, that we can't just assume unless there's like absolute kind of proof that this is an inherited condition. But this goes with so many things. People, again, the things that are handed down, the assumptions that are handed down about what
yes, but I think all I can do is make sure that I do everything in my control.
Exactly.
Either slow it down or to stop it from happening whatsoever. So that's part of my intentions that I want to have.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a great approach that you're taking the driving seat in this.
You have to.
Yeah,
you have to. You absolutely have to. I've seen older people, they stop work and they stop completely. They don't do anything, and you see the decline.
Yeah.
And especially amongst my mum's friends, so a lot of people would have gone back to the Caribbean from the UK, and they stop. And then suddenly, within a few years of going back, you hear, "Oh, they've passed away." For me, that's a lesson that you have to keep going with something, keep pushing yourself. So I think that's really important to do.
It totally is. I think that purpose, that reason for being alive, is so interesting, and so many people correlate the purpose with the work. And it's funny, my gran, I refer to her quite a lot. She's 95 now, and honestly, Marcia, trying to get her to retire was, I mean, she must have retired 4 or 5 different times, and she kept going back to work.
Good for her.
I know, we used to say she had more comebacks than Frank Sinatra. But now that she is kind of less mobile, and her sight is impaired and her hearing is going, and you just notice that decline in not just her physical form, but her mental kind of state as well, that she doesn't feel like she is useful, that she can contribute.
Right.
And trying to find things to stimulate her, to get her to engage, and to, even if it's just like wiping down the table after dinner, that's great as far as she's concerned, because she's involved, she's doing something. But yeah, it's just watching that connection between what we see as our involvement in what's going on around us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed. And one thing they did when I was at school, when we were in sixth form in particular, we, as part of our studies, had to go and spend time with an older person. So once a week, a couple of us would go, make them a cup of tea. We might tidy around a little bit, but more than anything, it was about sitting with them and listening to the stories. And I think that is so powerful, not just for me, learning about the challenges that they've been through as an elder person, but also them being able to impart that knowledge, and them coming alive as well, and they're enjoying it, and they've got there's always lots of stories. I think that gives them a sense of purpose as well, and I think that is something in society that needs to happen more and more.
And I mean, I guess that is something that, our society has changed so much in not that many generations really, and the connections between sort of families through generations has very much changed. The location of grandparents, I mean, my own kids grew up, one set of grandparents was a couple of 100 miles away, the other was, maybe 60 or 70 miles away, but that was still too far for them to be running to and from the grandparents' house in the way that I did when I was growing up. So yeah, it's and actually that's the other thing. I'm going to a storytelling event this evening, and I'm telling a story that involves my grandparents. And one of the things that I realize now, again, as I say, my gran is 95, and there's still some bits of the story that I don't know. And I'm not sure at this point, if she can even remember them. And there's no one else left who knows this story. And just, I suppose when you get to the stage, you realize, okay, this is the last chance saloon to actually find out what happened, what it was like.
Yes.
And if I don't find out, my kids are never going to know.
Absolutely. And it's so good to pass down. And this is something me and my cousins have spoken about, is how can we document the journey of our mothers? And it's because they have a fascinating journey, but also looking at our own journeys. It's hard to document your own. Oh, I did this when I did that, when I was that age, and I did. But I think it's important to pass down, because how do you learn? How do you find out about the past? Now, people have such fascinating histories. Oh, I think for you, Deirdre, definitely get the story, get it, document it, and have it there to pass down the generations. It's important.
Yeah, well, I'll do my best. I'll report back if I find any more little nuggets of information about it.
Let me know.
So, just the one thing again, we mentioned earlier that the likelihood of us having met as we started on our careers is to say the least. And yet here we are. We haven't met in person, but we are going to meet in person very soon. And this is all thanks to not just the internet, but obviously the drive and purpose behind our lovely mutual connection, Emma, who is bringing people together in person, a lot of whom might not have really met this way before. And I just think that this is definitely something that I don't want to give back. If we're weighing up the pros and cons of the digital world and this new society, this is just so valuable, is it not?
It is the connections as well as you get older, and distinguishing between a connection who you hold dear for a certain reason and you go to them for that particular reason, and then some of the more deeper connections that you have, that at any drop of the hat you need something and they're there. I think you start to recognize those and compartmentalize those as well. But you make some great connections along the way in a way that is different to when you're younger. If I think about when I was younger, early 20s maybe, if we had Facebook at that point, I mean, I would have been friends with over 5,000 people. I've got 5,000 friends. amazing. I want 6,000. You don't, it's not about the quantity nowadays, it's about the quality of those connections. And also when you meet people and you have the connection, recognizing you were right for a period of time, but you're not necessarily right for the next stage, and being comfortable with that as well. All that knowledge comes with age.
Yeah. There's a sort of a tide almost, you know. Some people are ride or die, and then there are other people who do come and go in our connected circle.
Yeah.
And I suppose we do have these sort of conundrums about this. It's like how much are we how much do we follow up? How much do we chase these things? How much do we let go? It's not it's definitely not an easy equation to solve, is it?
No, it's not at all. But I think as you get older as well, you stop worrying so much about what the other person thinks if you don't contact them, and more about, actually, I'm in this moment in my life and I just need a period of reflection, or I need space, and I'm quite comfortable with that. And if you have a deep connection with somebody, they recognize that and think, I haven't heard from that person at the moment. They're having a period of reflection, or whatever's happening for them. When the time's right, we'll come back together.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're younger, I think you think, they're not talking to me. What have I done to them? Well, Sodom. There is that mindset when you're younger, but when you're older, you just think, yes, it's fine. It's cool. It's okay.
Yeah, and I suppose the other side of that then as well is that, you know, there are just so many things going on. There is that level of overwhelm, isn't there? I mean, people that you genuinely would like to spend time with.
Yes.
But again, maybe this is another aspect of the fact that we all have so many connections these days, and we only have the same number of hours in a day to maintain those relationships.
We do, but it's about being picky and choosy with what you do with that time and who you spend that time with. So I'm quite comfortable that I may not see some of my friends for 6-7 months, but then when we come back together, it's magical.
Yeah.
It's like we've never been away. And for me, that's a true deep reflection. Relationship, should I say, that we have. Yeah. I'm quite comfortable. Yeah.
Well, look, Marcia, I think that we have covered a lot of ground here, and I'm, as I said, so pleased to have been able to have this conversation with you. I do really want to give a shout out to Emma Gemmell. Is there anything that you would like to say to Emma from here, or to any of the people that we're going to meet next month?
Oh, I'm looking forward to meeting so many people, but for Emma in particular. So I went through a coaching journey, and Emma was my coach. And we went from, I had about 15 values that I thought, yeah, they're really important to me. And we worked together, and I condensed them down to 5 values. And I am ever grateful to Emma for supporting me and holding my hand throughout that journey. And I look forward to meeting her in person next month, as well as all the other people that are going to be there. It's going to be a great time, a great party, and we're going to learn a lot.
Yeah. And for anyone who's wondering, we're talking about the HR Big Meet.
Yes, HR Big Meet is on the 17th
of May in somewhere in London.
Somewhere in London. Yeah, somewhere in London.
Yeah, come and say hi to us if you're there. And if, that will be great. That'll be the in-person version of the online conversation.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, look, thank you so much, Emma. Marcia. I'm having a senior moment here. Senior moments live on air.
We did say about brain fogging, so yeah, it's okay. We're fine.
Marcia, you are a star. You are amazing. You are going to be the best 50 ever.
I have a plan for my 50th, if I can just share it.
Oh, yeah, please.
So on the morning of my 50th, me and my husband will be in Marrakesh. My plan is to wake up, have a moment of reflection, gratitude. I want to think about some of my intentions, but most importantly, Deirdre, I want to be on the balcony looking up at the sun with Boney M, Brown Girl in the Rain, in the background, and I'll be dancing.
Oh, fabulous.
December on my 50th.
That sounds perfect.
Can't wait for it. Can't wait.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And let us know if anything comes up for you when you're listening to this in the playback, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you.